So everybody got some popcorn for the movie? You want to just introduce?
Yeah. So I actually have been working with this woman Alice for 3 or 4 months to get her to come here, as she has produced a film on dealing with the. There you are. Come on. Thank you. Whew. Okay, please come on up here. Well, no, we'll come up stage. Very good. You walk up the ramp. Oh, did you? Good. Come. I know. So I was just telling people that you and I have been working to get you to come here for 3 or 4 months, something like that, for a good long time. Yeah, so very happy here. Why don't you introduce yourself and talk about the film, and we're ready to show it.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for your patience. We were a little bit late. But anyways, so yeah, I'm Annie Ersinghaus. I'm from Las Cruces, and the film is called The Land of Sacrifice, and it's about the burden of oil and gas extraction in the state of New Mexico. I made this film because 2 years ago, if you talked to me, I would have no understanding about the amount of production that we have in our state. Like, none. I felt like I was in a little bubble of Las Cruces. And so NM Laws had came down to Las Cruces, the group, and one of the people in the film, Josie, she talked about her home and how it's changed in her lifetime and how she now has to deal. She used to hear birds, and now she has to deal with dust and pollution and noise and cars, and her grandma has pipelines running through her backyard. And I heard this, and I imagined my house and my backyard and my neighbors, and I was like, wait, whoa. This is happening to other New Mexicans, you know? In our state, this is happening to neighbors. And so along with that, I thought, like, there's so many people who don't know what's happening in our state, and I wanted to tell that story. So that's sort of where this film was born, and I learned a lot in the making of this film, and this film could have been much longer and gone many different ways, but I just wanted to scrape the surface and sort of show what I learned. So, yeah. Cool. I don't know if anyone's... Okay, cool. Cool, awesome. Yeah, hold your questions, and we have some folks from the film and from the lawsuit that are going to be here to talk after. So if you think of something, hold on to it, and they'll be up here to chat with me. So. Awesome. Thank you.
The protection of the state's beautiful and healthful environment is hereby declared to be of fundamental importance to the public interest, health, safety, and the general welfare. The legislature shall provide for control of pollution and control of despoilment of the air, water, and other natural resources of this state, consistent with the use and development of these resources for the maximum benefit of the people. Over the last decade, we have had an explosion in production. So New Mexico is the country's second largest oil producer, and this country is the world's largest oil producer. And New Mexico sits on the Permian Basin, which is called by scientists the world's largest global carbon bomb.
Smell the oil now? All depends on what you're downwind from. I've lived in Carlsbad for almost 24 years. I have seen over the last 20 years the degradation of our community on a level that is almost apocalyptic. See, look out here, we've got an alfalfa field and a pecan orchard, and then just past that, we have oil operations, all in the same vicinity. And if you look at that flare over there, you'll see what we're smelling.
You know, we're at the Sinclair refinery in Artesia, and right now I am looking at 5 separate stacks that are all producing emissions. What they're doing right now isn't legal, no. Unless they report it. That's where it gets a little complicated. With the agreed compliance orders in place, they can just, report that all these stacks were emitting at what time. Then the state, sees them as incompliant. They basically circumvent the law by reporting that they're violating it.
So there's really a myth in our state that we create the so-called cleanest oil in the world. They also love to say that they're already so highly regulated that there's no need for further regulation. Every fracking site in our state is granted with no consideration for the environment or public health. The Oil Conservation Division has a handful of regulators to monitor over 70,000 fracking sites, but they have about 5 investigators. The Environment Department is responsible to make sure that the air isn't polluted. We have under 10 enforcement officers, and so even the Secretary of the Environment Department has said, it's impossible for them to investigate and monitor the amount of production that's going on in our state. It would take them decades to get to every site.
Yeah, that's a really big one.
We recently passed a regulation in our state that prohibits venting and flaring, but the regulation is full of exceptions. And if you drive through the Permian Basin, I guarantee you will see the flares.
This is open range, so you have cattle grazing all over the place. But most of these sites out here are abandoned, so they're just sitting there, but they still have product in the tank, so they're still emitting. And so it's really easy here. You could just pick a site and 90% chance, I would say, that I could find emissions. The operator out here that's a problem is a small operator called Poco Resources. And what they're looking at right now is just a bunch of caked crude at the bottom of that tank. So this is considered an active well. It's listed as active. This is normal.
With this production has come an explosion of oil and gas pollution, and yet the state hasn't kept up. The state hasn't protected our environment or our health. We also have a regulation that says spills of toxic liquid waste are prohibited, but we have 4 spills a day.
Yeah, there's an active oil spill. So this is mostly water, but there is oil as well. But it used to be just a big pool of crude. This is also Poco.
We have almost no operators ever being penalized for those spills.
The site that we're currently at, this is owned by Taprock Operating. The site name is Pliny the Elder 232H. The flare at this site, I have filed 7 complaints on in the last couple of years, and New Mexico regulatory agencies haven't responded at all. Me and one other person doing field work, we would hit like 30 or 40 of these in a day. Yeah, I can easily hit 200 sites a week that look just like this. So.
And the science is very clear that being near and in proximity to oil and gas pollution is very dangerous for your health.
When the EPA sets these minimal levels of toxins, it's like, it's a frickin' toxin. There is no safe level. Even people who have health care, even docs like me, who know this stuff, we don't have access to testing levels. We don't have access in most places to air quality monitoring, to water quality monitoring. We don't even know what we're exposed to. Oh, remember to ask them what their exposures are. I mean, I learned that in medical school, right? But the exposures were not toxin, carcinogens and endocrine disruptors in your air and water and food.
All the way to that fence, far back there is my family's land. Essentially what you're looking at is an active construction site where they're adding natural gas pipelines underground. We're looking at numbers 7 and 8 being added to the ground. There are already 6 pipelines here. I can't properly identify the words to explain what it feels like to watch people come into your home and take over. There's a feeling of helplessness. There's a feeling of helplessness knowing that my 78-year-old grandmother has to watch this from her window, watching her home being ripped up.
So one of the things about Counselor, New Mexico, or what is called Eastern Agency of the Navajo Nation, is we have what is called the checkerboard area. Now we are surrounded by BLM land, federal land, fee land.
So it makes for a complex jurisdiction. It is an existence of no man's land. We had a tsunami of oil and gas development. No place to run, no place to take shelter. It's here. See, here's a temporary water facility here. Sam calls them outdoor swimming pools.
The state doesn't know and the industry doesn't know what to do with all of this toxic liquid waste. They've renamed it produced water.
The industry doesn't have to divulge the exact chemicals that are put into that mixture. These are close relatives, their allotment, and right now they're landlocked. No water, no electricity. Whereas that well site we just passed has electricity. An oil company can go to a tract of land and say, I want to lease that. And they have their own system that a person here never gets apprised of. And to hell with the people that live out there. To hell with the beauty of the land, the unfettered landscape.
See, come look in. It's really yak. So it's just a toxic stew. We're here on this well site with our house and our home in the background and our spring, the famous Devil's Spring right below us. Morning, girls. Feels very much like you're on a normal ranch, and then you come around the corner, and any corner, and this is what we have. shoot, it's dumping waste, and you can smell it now. So these are our neighbors. I know you've had a bad neighbor or two. Think about if your neighbor could just come onto your property and drill an oil or a gas well, and you could not stop them. And that's the law in the United States. Even though we own this land, we can't stop the oil company from drilling here. Could have been leaking for weeks and weeks, I don't know, but it was just pouring out methane and, as you can see from the sign, benzene, very toxic, cancer-causing, and harmful. Every single well vents emissions on purpose. It's built that way. You can't build a house and not have a leak in the plumbing. Now think of 30,000 wells, and this is the plumbing. They're good guys out in the field. Guys working here every day, just jobs that they need. Provide for their families, they're local, and they're helpful. All the problems that we ever have with an oil company come from somebody in an office that has got a glass window in it. Got a dove right up here. Oh, and a hawk right here. Beautiful. Pinyon jays, also known as rain crows. They could be a sign that we're going to get some rain.
The wells here are not like the Permian, very remote, not a lot of power for folks. They got to haul their water in. So this is what is commonly called a Poppin' Johnny. So it's a gas engine that is being powered by the gas coming off the well, and that's what you're hearing right now. And it runs 24/7, 365 days a year. This is not actually a well, it's a facility. On this location, there was an old fire extinguisher, and fire extinguishers need to be inspected monthly and every year. And so there was a metal tag on it that was stamped 2009. But you can look around and see corrosive acids. See, look at the conditions of these things. Look at the sludge in the bottom of this. Look at the little samples here, sample bottles. There was an email I saw which basically said there was like a discussion between the BLM and New Mexico OCD, sort of arguing or discussing about who was going to pay for the cleanup of this. That's always sort of been the issue up here. Who's responsible? Is it the BIA? Is it the BLM? Is it the New Mexico Oil Conservation Division? Or is it, the surface owners or whoever? So they're always going back and forth and just sort of kicking the can down the road. Really nasty stuff.
The reality is we don't know how many abandoned wells there are, but we can be very confident that if the state says there are 1,700, it's probably 10 times or much higher. We know it's a much higher number. We know the oil industry doesn't want us to know what the true number is because they owe us the money to clean that up. Their business model is to privatize the profits and then socialize the losses. Stick the cleanup bill to the New Mexican taxpayers. This is their take the money and run approach. And it's the same thing they're doing in Texas and North Dakota and anywhere we produce oil and gas.
So my children, they go to Liebrook Elementary in Counselor, New Mexico. My kids have always told me that there's a smell in the classroom and outside the classrooms. When he smells it for a long period of time, that's when he gets headaches. Now my sons, they get like skin rashes. And I ask my kids, like, are there kids coughing at school? And they go, yeah, everyone's always coughing.
I suffer from an autoimmune disease. Just recently, I got done with a 3-week migraine episode where I was in and out of pain every day for those 3 weeks.
High incidence of congestion, headache, VOCs, methane does affect the endocrine system. And with the already high existence of diabetes, COPD, high blood pressure, that just exacerbates health impacts.
And we are essentially a colony of the industry. And with all of this money, we are paying a heavy price. We are paying with our health, and we are literally paying with our futures, because it is the oil and gas industry that is driving the climate crisis and destroying our environment. And for those of us who live near oil and gas production, it is destroying our health. And it's really a question, is it worth it?
I had heard back then about the original uranium mines. And then after that, it's the Trinity test site and all the downwinders, and that's still happening and they're still being ignored, right? We are a sacrifice zone. Oil and gas is just the newest sacrifice.
People that live in the corners of this state are living with a beast. For me, this is every single day, day in and day out, and we don't get a break from this. We don't get rest from this.
So we have both the blessing of a natural resource and the curse for what it brings.
Nothing can really live here. There's just nothing but habitat fragmentation and the destruction of a once thriving ecosystem. This is a big, farming community. The food that we're eating is bioaccumulating all these toxins that are produced by the oil and gas industry. The food that we grow, that people consume, accumulating all these toxins. In turn, we're doing the same thing because we're consuming them.
We have been pushing the state, pushing the governor, pushing the legislature to pass a law that would prevent new production near schools, and it would protect the health of 34,000 children. We can't get this law passed. And I think the reason we can't get this law passed is because our policymakers, our governor, they don't want to admit that oil and gas production and pollution is harmful to our health. If they were to admit that, that would be a crack in the door, that in fact our oil and gas isn't clean, and that oil and gas production isn't clean, and that we need protection from this filthy industry.
It's the best kept secret of industry. It's the tobacco industry on steroids.
So that's the corporation, and that's what we're dealing with, and that's why the governors, the legislatures, and the only thing that can really help is probably the court system.
I'm working with a coalition called NM Laws, which stands for New Mexico Land, Air, Water, and the Sacred. And we are a coalition of indigenous youth and frontline community members who have come together to hold the state accountable for its duty, its constitutional duty, to protect our beautiful environment from oil and gas pollution.
Right now we're at Sitting Bull Falls. If you can believe it, we're still in the Permian Basin, only an hour from Carlsbad. I love to come here and listen to the flowing water. When I come here, I know what I'm fighting so hard for.
For the Navajos, Early on, we were told, use only what you need. Take care of the earth. The earth will take care of you. They view land much like a commodity. An acre of land has so much value, but in the Navajo concept, acres isn't part of the language, the culture. It's the vastness of the landscape.
Living with oil and gas as a landowner is very, very difficult. We must all live under the same blue sky and work towards protecting that and protecting the future for our children and doing what makes common sense.
I'll use my bottom line. Our health has been politicized. Our lives have been politicized. There is no political will to rein in industry profits. A corporation is a person, they have rights. Well, they have used their rights to abuse the planet and the people.
This is not a question of is it a Democratic administration or a Republican administration? This is a constitutional question. Basically, what we need to see the state do is protect our health and protect our environment and protect our climate. And the state has a lot of work to do to protect, as our Constitution says, our beautiful and healthful environment.
It is so vital to me that we find the healthy balance between creating energy without destroying the planet in the process. What happens here is not just affecting Carlsbad. What happens here, what happens in the Permian Basin, is affecting the planet.
We're up against a neighbor that is the most destructive industry in the history of the world. And that's a tough neighbor to have. We just have to fight every day and ask everyone to join us in that fight.
We have to tell our story over and over. If it can happen here, it can happen anywhere.
So Annie, you want to bring up your team? Who's here? Please have a seat. Can you figure out the difficult curtain? So have a seat. I think Annie hasn't gotten through yet. She's coming. Ta-da, you made it. That's right. Why don't we get two or three? So, Annie, why don't you start off and introduce your group and talk about what you want to talk about in the film, and then we'll get questions.
We can just pass.
Yeah, well, I'll just start with, I'll have each of you guys introduce yourselves. You guys have met me. Do you want to start, or I'll start over here? Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laverne Johnson. I'm an attorney with the Center for Biological Diversity. I work with Gail, who you saw in the film, and yeah, I'm one of the attorneys on the lawsuit that was spoken about, and I just want to say up front that we have appealed to the state Supreme Court. We finished submitting our briefing just over a month ago, and hopefully we will have oral argument this fall.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. My name is Charlie Barrett. I'm an ecologist with an environmental organization called Oilfield Witness. I've worked in the Permian Basin for about 12 years. I worked as an ecologist and forester at Texas A&M University and the Forest Service, studying in the Texas Permian Basin. And now most of my work is centered in New Mexico, but I also work in Louisiana, Oklahoma, Texas. I think that's it.
Ya'ate, my name is Mario Atencio. I'm a frontline organizer with the Protect Greater Chaco Coalition. Also a PhD candidate at the University of New Mexico, and studying everything you've seen here. So nice to meet you all tonight.
Yeah, I guess I'll start with, if any of you want to make a comment. I kind of, said my dealio in the beginning, and if you have any questions for any of us, hold them. But I'll maybe go through, if each of you want to start with something that you really want to say that's the most important, thing you want folks to understand, I think, and maybe the way to start this conversation or trigger any questions in the audience as well.
Yeah, some of what I say will reiterate what was in the film, but I want to say that our state government has a constitutional obligation to protect the people and the environment of New Mexico from pollution, and it has failed to do that. The legislature has enacted laws that exempt oil and gas pollution from almost every environmental statute in New Mexico. It has consistently underfunded our state agencies, the New Mexico Environment Department and the Oil Conservation Division, that are responsible for overseeing oil and gas production. And in the case of the Environment Department, purportedly responsible for keeping our water and our land and our air clean. And it has not given the Oil Conservation Division the authority to consider health or the environment when it approves new applications for permits to drill. And that means that of the more than 70,000 active wells in New Mexico, none of them were approved with consideration of health and the environment. That's still the case today. In 2025, in the last full legislative session, the center, working with other local organizations, brought a bill to try and change that, and also brought a bill to try and establish a 1-mile setback around schools in New Mexico to protect at least children from the worst of oil and gas pollution. Down in the Permian Basin, there are schools that have more than 100 wells within a mile, and dozens of wells within half a mile, and children at schools are breathing in toxins from those wells every day, impacting their health and their long-term chance of success. And our legislature has failed to enact even basic protections, even when asked repeatedly to do so. And part of that has to do with the leadership in our state. And we are hopeful that in this next legislative session in 2027, that we can bring those same bills and achieve a different result.
I guess I would say that you know, what the message I would like to convey to all of you and really everyone in New Mexico is that the Permian Basin and the San Juan Basin are like failing ecosystems. And the Permian Basin is actually on the verge of a total collapse, probably the biggest ecological disaster in human history. And we can't get, as someone who's conducting this research on the ground, all four of us have been in the field together. There is almost zero enforcement because there's zero enforcement capacity. But the other thing that we've allowed the industry to do is we've allowed them to play a fundamental role in the rulemakings process. And so, you know, that's kind of hard to trust the industry to clean up their own mess when all of these years, for decades, they've had the money to clean up their own mess, but the state has continued to provide provisions for them to forego those responsibilities. And now we're at a time where the oil and gas industry is in a decline, and they're not going to have the money to clean up their mess. So we have to get that money now. We have to force our legislators to do something because we're going to continue to pay for it. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that there's been a lot of talk about plugging in New Mexico. I'm finding emissions at plugged facilities because we're using the wrong technology to plug them. So I think the average is what, $180,000 to plug a well? Yeah, so, but some wells cost $20 million to plug. We're going to have to keep replugging these wells every 10 years because we're using concrete as the primary technology to plug them. Concrete is a porous material, so as the well casing becomes corroded, there's nothing there to fill that gap. So one thing that I would advocate for all of you to do is to call your legislators and advocate for liquid bridge plugging. Right now, the Oil Conservation Division, they have about, I think, another month or so. They're in they come up with their management plans every 5 years, so they can create new contracts to use like liquid bridge plugging, which can fill those gaps because like resin composite material can expand and contract. So if that casing head, becomes corroded and fails, well, there's a better chance. So concrete plugging has almost 100% fail rate. So we're spending all this money. You are, because there's basically no incentive for the industry to clean up their own mess. And there's not a lot of evidence that the state is even collecting fines or bonds to begin with. I think, what is it, $250,000 for a larger operator, 250,000 blanket bonds? Yeah, and some companies, it's as low as 45 or 50,000? The bottom end is 10,000 to clean up a well. And so for larger operators like Exxon, they can pay 250 grand. Well, that may not even clean up one facility, and we're stuck with the rest of it. So if they have 500 facilities or 1,000 facilities, depending on the operator, we get stuck with that bill. So, next year, we have another opportunity to, and I think Laverin's working directly on that, right, as far as increasing the blanket bonds. And so that's something that we have to do, otherwise we're never going to get the money to clean up this mess. And then I guess the last thing that I would say is that, we're in a mass extinction event right now, the sixth mass extinction event. We are conservatively, I attend the Ecological Society of America conferences every year. I'm a member of the ESA. We're conservatively losing 5 species per hour. And in New Mexico alone, we have the dune sagebrush lizard on the verge of extirpation in the Permian Basin, and the lesser prairie chicken, which are iconic species in New Mexico. So the habitat fragmentation in the Permian Basin is so intense, not just because of air pollution, but the light pollution, the sound pollution, throw off every living organism's circadian rhythm, so they have to find a new place to go. Well, the oil and gas industry is continuing to expand because we're issuing these habitual violators in New Mexico new permits to drill more wells. So it's just this never-ending cycle with this just catastrophic cascading effect. And if we don't do something about it now, it will completely collapse. And so call your legislators, advocate for better bonding technology and for better protections for our wildlife and for the people that live in close proximity to these sites.
I'll say something really briefly before I pass it along, but I think adding on to what we've talked about and what we'll continue to talk about is what's happening in our state. Like we're in, people in Albuquerque, people in Cruces, people in Santa Fe, we're not necessarily near this production. So it's easy for us to just be in our bubbles. And that's like one of the reasons, like, again, why I made this film. But what's happening to our neighbors is, first of all, important, right, in the corners of our state. But what is happening in the state of New Mexico is affecting the world. What is happening here, Gail talked about it last night in Santa Fe. Oil from the Permian Basin is killing whales in the Gulf of California. The Gulf, and you could maybe talk a little bit more on this, but like what is happening here is actively hurting many other places, not just our own, like New Mexicans and our environment.
Yeah, so I'm the namesake on the New Mexico Constitution case, Atencio versus the state of New Mexico. And so it's actually my mom. My mom, in our culture, the Navajo culture, we have to get permission from our mothers to go do something sort of dangerous. And talking with her, I said, we're going to sue the state of New Mexico. And she said, let's go for it. And so we frame our efforts from a matriarchal perspective. And so the counselors, New Mexico, far eastern edge of Navajo Nation, there was in 2015, 8 grandmas, 8 matriarchs of that community said in a public meeting, you guys something needs to be done, what's happening. So this latest lawsuit is part of a multiple-pronged process we've started since 2015, and even before, is that there's the federal side, which is even more scarier than what's happening here in the state. All of the safety nets that are in the National Environmental Policy Act, the Council of Environmental Quality, which is the core behind environmental justice considerations on a federal level have all been dismantled, basically. And so that's the world that's happened. We've already been working on this through the whole pandemic, through the current administration the first time. And as we saw that there was a big change afterwards, but it takes an immense amount of vigilance. The stuff we're doing now is just the bare bones. And we've been successful in the past to stop wells. We're one of the few places in the Intermountain West where oil and gas wells were stopped. And it was because it was from indigenous-led coalitions that actually pushed and changed the law and demanded the federal government to stop. We have to really mark the state land commissioner, Stephanie Garcia Richards, who saw what was happening at the Liebrecht Elementary and said, from now on, no more oil and gas wells within a mile of schools, I think places of worship. That's just new wells, not the old wells. So there is ability to change. So in all this doom and gloom, the powers that we have, we were just 5 people sitting around our local community center in Counselors, New Mexico. Our power was so small. Through working and telling the truth, I think that's the very important thing. That's the greatest weapon we have. This is part of it. So if 5 of us can do something that creates a 200-member intertribal, national, and international coalition that can count upon senators, the United States senators, as our allies, what can you guys do? How much are you doing? And so it's a challenge. That's a challenge. It's fun to watch these films and rah 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 and get angry, but at some point you're gonna have to step into it. And that's my challenge to you. Maybe you're ready. Maybe you'll never be ready. But I think that's a thing that coming to these Q&A sessions, we want to see something like that. We need to change the underlying dynamic the power dynamic. This is New Mexico controlled by so-called progressives. These are the oil Democrats. That has to change, guys. We have to take the lead and do as much as we can. And I think we've seen this, and I think it really starts, we're at least 40 people. This is a very powerful power base. But the last thing I want to end is that the matriarchs and the peoples, their prayers are moving. We are part of that. And so going forward, there's the federal side, the state side. We even fought locally within Sandoval County to stop fracking out there. That's still a reason. You're seeing this constantly. So it takes that level from the local community level to the county, to the state, to the federal government. And now we are now starting to appeal to the United Nations Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. So it's multi-level what we're doing on the ground, and we need a lot of backup. And so I want to end that. And so with a good word. So thank you.
So who has questions? Come on up. Michelle has the microphone. And if we run out of questions, I have lots, so.
I have okay, testing. I was told it very close.
So I have a comment to make first and then a question. So I just finished a book by Michael Tomasky. And he made a comment, he made lots of comments, but one of them was that it's not our legislators in any of our states that really get the ball rolling on change. It is, as you guys know, the people. So that was number one comment that I wanted to make. My question to you guys is, what other groups are you reaching out to? I used to be a part of the Green Amendment for New Mexico, which wants to get well, you guys know all about this probably already. They want to get in the state constitution what we're talking about, the pollution of the oil, polluting our air, water, and lands has got to stop, and we have to get that into our state constitution. So are you guys working with them at all? Green Amendment of New Mexico? And if not, maybe we could do something about that and help you guys.
I just want to say one thing on your previous comment, and then I'll see if anyone has answers. But like, our politicians should represent us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are the top of the pecking order, and that's how it should be. Like,
Yeah, and
anyways.
then the only way they know that we're at the top is we got to peck on them. Yeah, big time. So that is something that we, Indivisible Albuquerque, we are going against Blackstone and Bernhardt. Both of them are large equity capital folks. And we're also going against WATR Alliance, which represents the oil and gas. So those are three groups we are going up against here at Indivisible Albuquerque. Yeah, so I think we should start aligning with, I forgot your name, sir? Mario. Mario's group with Green Amendment. That's what we have to do. We have to build a broad-based coalition, I believe, and go after our legislators. And I will say, speaking to some of them a while back, a lot of them in the smaller counties have a high school diploma, and that is it. And also, we don't pay our legislators, and that's another problem. So we've got ignorance and lack of pay. So, yeah, that's a problem.
I was going to just try to address part of your question, and I can't address all of it, but our organization is working internationally. So we just got back from briefing the EU in Italy. We're going there again in a couple of weeks. We briefed the National Diet in Japan. Japan is one of the largest financiers of liquefied natural gas in the world. So we've worked on documentaries in Germany. A lot of Europeans still believe that liquefied natural gas is clean. And there are even environmental groups in the US that I'm not going to call out by name because I don't want to get sued again, but that are working to promote certified clean natural gas, which is a total scam. And just to give you an idea of how big of a scam it is, And RMI and MIQ are working in collaboration with some of these environmental groups I'm too hesitant to name. They are actually installing certified clean natural gas monitors on facilities in New Mexico and Texas. Our organization has found emissions at 100% of those facilities. So it's just a joke. It's just a thing that the industry's continuing to do to maintain power. So our goal over the last few years has been to influence foreign governments to stop buying our product. So that is one angle that we're taking. We're working with Friends of the Earth Japan, and we're also working with organizations in Sweden, Norway, Germany, Italy, Spain. We work in Mexico. So we're a little tiny organization. We all came from a big environmental group. There's only 4 of us, but we work all over the world. And so, but the last part of your question, as far as, I can't remember the organization that you mentioned. I don't think I can. Green Amendment? Yeah, I mean, does anyone else want to speak to that?
As many things to address in what you said. As far as the Green Amendment goes, for NM laws and for the center, we are really focused on enforcing the pollution control clause that our Constitution already has, and that our court system should demand that our legislature and our executive branch comply with their constitutional duties to protect the state from oil and gas pollution, which is the dominant source of pollution in our state. That said, I think if the courts fail to do that, I think a Green Amendment is an obvious next step to strengthen what is already in our Constitution. And yes, I agree strongly with what you said at the start. We have faced hurdles in passing legislation that would protect people in New Mexico and protect our environment. And those hurdles reflect a political calculus by, oil and gas Democrats, as others have called them, that aligning with oil and gas is going to get them more votes than aligning with their constituents. And it is going to take a lot of people to persuade New Mexican legislators that that is not the case. And I think even more so as we have Blackstone, we have Oracle and OpenAI, we have truly massive companies, Chevron, Exxon, all of these titans of corporations coming in and trying to persuade people that it is in their best interest to align with them, when really they are just here to extract from New Mexico, from our people, and from our environment. And we need to build movements to oppose those things. And yeah, I think others can talk more about the substance of the specifics of that opposition, but totally agree.
Yeah, quickly, Daniel So and I have parties in the WKCC to fight the WATR Alliance. We've met with Maya Van Rossum for the Green Amendment before, but we see that I think the latest ruling or the latest briefing by national constitutional lawyers writes that our Constitution as it stands is pretty clear and more enforceable than other places like Montana, where young people have sued and won, saying that the oil and gas facilities are violating their state constitution, and that our language and constitution is even stronger than those cases. And so there's like 2 or 3, right, with those cases. And so, and with broad-based coalitions, movement politics happens. You hear, we are involved everywhere from Sierra Club. We've hosted Sierra Club National, Wilderness Society, all the way down to the local peoples. And so we've been doing that. So we're meeting like every bi-weekly to actually do this. And so we're part of everything that you're doing. We've already we know in Indivisible Albuquerque we've been always on the radar. So thank you.
So I am so happy to hear someone talking about the 6th extinction, which is my bailiwick as an artist. I have been saying we are losing 3 species per hour. You are saying at least 5. That is an interesting thing, but The thing that is interesting to me is that the fourth extinction, which is the extinction that happened before the dinosaurs, was the most complete extinction of the planet, life on the planet. It took 186 million years before the beginning of the dinosaur age, and there were dinosaur-like creatures prior in the fourth extinction. The dinosaurs were 75 million years, and we are 76 million years past the dinosaurs. And we are now in the fastest extinction. The fourth was the fastest, 60,000 years, and they're saying 1,000 to 10,000 times faster, which means 6 to 60 years before we have wiped out life on the planet. And we are getting a lesson in this from the Straits of Hormuz, where the fertilizer is not coming to the northern hemisphere in time for planting. We are so reliant on fertilizer to feed our planet, and we are going to have starvation, massive starvation, resulting from this stupidity. And so extinction is caused by a lack of adaptation in a time that allows survival. And we are already showing that failure to adapt. And the corals are dying. The bees of the ocean provide the life force for all the fish that we also consume on our planet. So I like that you're talking about that, and I'm wondering if you can mention some of the specific environmental, ecological, sixth extinction collapse that we are facing as a result of the hole in Daddy's arm where all the money goes.
Yeah, thanks. I'll do my best to try to answer that question. I think that one of the challenges that ecologists and other conservation biologists are facing is that the pace of climate change is so rapid, which also far outpaces our regulatory frameworks. But we don't even know. Like, it's somewhere between 100 to 10,000 times the background rate. And just to kind of, I mean, you may all know this, so sorry if this is redundant, but that means that we're losing 100 to 10,000 species per species that we lost in the fifth mass extinction event. And so, yeah, and we've lost 73% of our invertebrate population in the last 46 years. I'm 44. That's crazy to think about as a rather young ecologist, that we've also lost 50% of all bird species. Insects have been one of the most stable population densities, and now we're starting to rapidly lose insect species. So bees, but other key pollinators as well. But we're also losing apex predators, which have a catastrophic, like keystone species have a catastrophic ecological impact. And so I'm sure you've all heard the story about Mexican gray wolves and when they were reintroduced into Yellowstone, and how that brought back water systems because there were animals to kill deer that were eating all the plants and forbs. But yeah, I mean, oil and gas extraction continues to break those habitats up. And God, we were watching this other documentary. Can I talk about another documentary that we watched? Okay, so I don't know if you all know who Roman Dial is, but he's an ecologist that works in Anchorage, Alaska, and he's doing a lot of research on the permafrost. And he talked a lot about how that, the iron that is, basically leaching from the rock into our river system is having a catastrophic impact on, fish species as well. So I hope that I did my best to answer your question. There's a lot to unpack there, and but I think that what I would like you all to know is that we don't know. I mean, there's so many different modeling methods out there, and we still can't come up with a more accurate number than somewhere between 100 to 10,000 times the background rate. And that should, excuse my French, scare the shit out of all of us. And yeah, we have to act immediately. And I don't think that really any of us know what that looks like, but we do know that extractive industry is by far the most harmful.
You have made a beautiful film. It's horrifying, but it's very informative, and it was eye-opening for me. So I'd like to know how we can show this to others.
Yeah, it's available on the NM Laws website. It's available on my Vimeo. It's available on YouTube. So if you look up the name of the film, The Land of Sacrifice, The Burden of Oil and Gas Extraction, or my name, Annie Erzinghaus, and I don't know if it's on the, okay, yeah, look up my name, look up the name of the film. It's on Vimeo, YouTube, and the NM Laws website, so you can pass that around wherever you want to.
And I'll add to that. We, NM Laws and the Center, are very interested in helping people to host watch parties. So if you are motivated and you want to get together, a group of friends and community members to show them, not just send them a link, but show them and provide a space to talk about what's happening, please, you can. There's an email link on the NM Laws website, which is nmlandairwatersacred.org. You could research there, or if you want to talk to me afterwards, I'll be happy to give you my email. And yeah, would really value you putting your time and energy into sharing this film.
Hi, thank you for being here. I found your film to be very illuminating. I'm just wondering, as I look at this, is there a version of an oil and gas industry that would not destroy the planet? And if it even exists in our minds, like it clearly doesn't exist in real life, but if it did exist, what would it look like, and how would it price itself out of the market? Like, what would that look like?
I'm going to say no. I think there is a version of the oil and gas industry in New Mexico that pollutes less, and certainly something that we are trying to work towards is protecting communities from the rampant toxic pollution that is emitted by tens of thousands of oil and gas wells, not to mention massive midstream and processing facilities. And I think Charlie is more qualified to talk about this, so I'll probably hand him the mic in a sec, and Mario also. Oil and gas is an extractive industry that produces emissions that I think almost inevitably destroy our climate. And people will talk about carbon capture and sequestration as though there is a way to implement that and to have an oil and gas industry, to have our cake and eat it too. And we have seen time and again that CCS does not work. It's a waste of money and time, and it is a way to prop up a failing fossil fuel industry. And I think we need to abandon the idea that we can build a world on this extractive technology and move towards more positive futures.
I don't know that I'm more qualified because I basically say the same thing. What I would say is no, there's no way for oil and gas to be sustainable. Green energy is cheaper and more profitable. So they're on a major decline. They know they are, and they want to play a role in this transition period. And so they want to maintain their power. And I mean, you're seeing this all over the world with what they're doing in Patagonia. We're still, anyway, I'm not even going to get into that because I'll talk for 20 minutes. But what I would say, and a lot of environmental groups hate it when we say this, and one thing I meant to mention earlier, and you saw it in the documentary, but I probably should have told you all this. Like, what our organization does is we use optical gas imaging equipment to make invisible emissions visible, and that's what separates our org from a lot of other organizations. This problem would not exist if you can see it, but humans cannot see within the 0.2 to 0.4 macron range. So we have cameras that can make it visible for you. These are also spills. But there is no way to work out of this through incremental policy reforms. They are useless when you don't have enforcement capacity. The only solution to this problem is to stop issuing permits. That's it. There's nothing else that you can do. And then we have to put all of our time and energy into plugging all these wells and doing it the right way. Otherwise, this is going to be a problem that generations are going to face for centuries. So we just have to stop issuing permits.
Yeah, I see we only have about 7 more minutes or so. Keep it short, she tells me. I'm not capable of keeping it short. I wanted to at least acknowledge of many years ago that Mario and Daniel and Kendra, as I recall, hosted Maya and many of us on a tour of the, several facilities in the San Juan Basin, and so that's why I knew right away that Mario would know about the work of Maya, who has been relentless in trying to do this. But 7 legislative sessions, and the legislators shoot down any attempt at trying to pass environmental rights for New Mexico. And my understanding of the distinguishing part of it is that the environmental rights, or the Green Amendment, would give us citizens the opportunity to bring forth a lawsuit, whereas the Pollution Control Act, or whatever it's called in our state constitution, they actually give that to the legislators. So the legislators can point to the fact that, oh, we have passed legislation that is protective of our environment, but then we won't have any enforcement. And the film was fantastic. It was visceral for me to see all that stuff again at your level. So my question is, I think it would be very impactful if you could make an addendum to your film that would actually include all the money that oil and gas gives to Governor ONG and to the leadership of the legislature, because they are the ones who suppress things like trying to pass a new law that would keep oil and gas facilities a mile outside of schools. It is that leadership that is actually, and from the top down. And so I think just putting that in there, because they receive tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then just one other question, or one other comment about how we might see a better oil and gas industry. And I'm gonna mention Carl back here, because Carl has said that, if the oil and gas industry would pay for the maintenance of their facilities instead of giving it in contributions to the legislators, if they would pay their workers to do the maintenance on the facilities, we would not see that crud that you really documented very well. All right. Anyhow, so that was my question. There was a question there about, could you include all the money that is given from the oil and gas industry to our legislators?
Yeah, I mean, and that's something I learned making this film, is I was like, oh my God, this could go like 5 million directions. Like, I could go deeper in so many ways on this film, and this was really truly like scrape the surface, but I think there could be so many more additions to this, another series, whatever, and then something to speak on previously too is I think like the oil and gas industry can never be good, but they could at least admit the harms. Like, they could at least be upfront about what damage they're causing, is one of the things I've thought about too, is like, just talk about that. Did anyone else have any?
Yeah, well, looking at, with the constitutional law case, and thank you for marking our fracking reality tour that we do. And we always have an open invitation to go out there for anyone else that wants to go. We do mark that, and thank you for marking how, corrupt the system really is. And there is, it's ExxonMobil knew. I think that's like, they watched the climate crisis unfold. They actually predicted it. And so, and I think it's very good to mark that, the Green Amendment has not passed committee, has never gotten past maybe 2 committees at all. Even our conservative sort of legislation that we've tried to push haven't gotten past committee. But here, I think what we're trying to say is to push, start with the legislature. We hear you. We want to have, there's multi-pronged approach that we see and we understand, and we're very respectful of. And I think at least this is taking what we have right now and then pushing us far, and to actually have the court grant us a writ, and to actually considering our arguments is pretty powerful in itself. And I think it's probably the best we could do right now. But we can't always get pigeonholed into one way either. And we see we have to keep everything open and hit all of those things. And I think one thing where we haven't gotten there is changing the dynamic of the Democratic Party, changing the dynamic of what we're doing. These are good stuff, but it's always on top-down approach. What about from the bottom? And I think that's the power base. So thank you.
Totally agree. We should start from the bottom up. And I just want to say, with regards to what is currently in our Constitution, the oil and gas industry and our legislature would like you to believe the narrative that we don't have the right to enforce our Constitution, but that is not true. Mario already mentioned we have an amicus brief in our case from some very distinguished constitutional law scholars who absolutely believe that our Constitution creates a positive right, a duty on the legislature that we as citizens have the power to enforce if they are not controlling pollution and despoilment of our environment. Those are the words of the Constitution. And I, as a lawyer, believe that that is what our Constitution creates. I think it is a very strong constitutional provision, and our Supreme Court is at least interested in considering that as well. This New Mexico Supreme Court took our case to consider. It takes fewer than 8% of the cases presented before it, and the fact that it took our case says to me that the justices of that court believe that there is something worthwhile in the interpretation of the Constitution that we've advanced that would require the legislature to affirmatively control pollution, control despoilment of our environment, protect our people. And yeah, if anyone tells you that we need a Green Amendment would be awesome, but we already have it in our Constitution, and we as people need to tell others that it's already in our Constitution because we create the meaning of the law. It is not just the courts that create it. People have the power to influence the way that law is perceived and constructed, and starting with that is important.
We are at 7:30, and we usually try to stop on time. I'm sure if you guys would stay up here, people would come up with more questions. But I really want to thank you, and one of the reasons we waited so long for Annie to come here is because we wanted to make it a watch party. Annie had told me, oh yeah, you can show the film, but I thought for us and for everyone else, we needed your comments to make it a really valuable experience. So thank you so much. And we would like to figure a way as elections come up, is how we can work together to make sure we are very active in the local and state elections, and would be very interested in having a relationship with you so we can figure out who we're going to support and who we're not going forward. So thank you very much.